Mhm. It's the Amish Podcast, episode 16, talking about the Knicks. Gonna have my man Tommy Dee from SNY, from the knicksblog.com, from a lot of social media, notoriety.com. My man is a legend. He's a good person. His story is something that's inspiring. Mhm. Just waiting for Tommy to jump on, waiting for my co-host and brother John Doe, Juan Doe, to pull up. I picked a different setting because it's a nice night. It's a beautiful night here in New York, and it's an even better night when the Knicks are the fourth seed. So now we here. Here he is.
Yes, sir. What's goody?
John Doe, what up? What's the deal, my brother? Can you hear me?
Yeah, man.
No technical difficulties, right?
Getting the heavy Knicks talk tonight, man.
Yeah, definitely. You know what I'm saying? This is episode 16. I like the vibe that we had doing it live with episode 15. And Tommy, likes to engage with people. So
Yeah, hold on.
we'll see if anybody jumps in.
Yep. Yeah. Got a lot going on over here. I was using my phone earlier. So it's pretty good. Yeah, man. So we're in a good space, though. You know, can't complain about where the Knicks are at right now. That's for sure.
Not at all. Knicks
I
in
ain't
a
complaining.
beautiful situation right now. Expected to
Right.
win 20, 25 games by most, booking agents and experts. We crushed those numbers. We became a household
Definitely.
name. Okay, hold on. My man
Definitely been a
Tommy
long
pulling
time
up.
coming. Yo.
Hey, there he is. Tommy, can you hear us?
JP. Justin, can you hear me, bro?
I can hear you just fine.
Yeah. What's up, guys?
What's
Hey,
going
what's
on?
up, Tommy?
Oh, there we go. Hey,
Tommy,
what's up?
how we doing, man?
Everything's good, man. How are you?
I'm very good, man. I'm glad to see you. Let me formally introduce you to my best friend and co-host,
What's up, Tommy?
John Doe.
All right, what's up, Tommy?
What's up, John? How you doing, man?
What's going on, man? I'm all right,
How's
man.
it going? Thanks for having me.
You're affectionately known as the blog father among us, man. The blog father.
That's right.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, back a lot of years, man. It's going quick, man. They used to tell us it goes fast, but we thought they were lying, right?
For real.
They were not. Time ain't waiting for anyone.
Crazy. Nope.
So yeah, man. I mean, I figured if there's any time that I could talk to you on a platform like this is probably the best time because
Sure.
Knicks fandom is in a high space, is in a great energy right now, and I figure that if we're gonna get to it, let's get to it now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear us, bro?
No, we might have a bad connection on that.
Yeah,
side.
we might have. Yeah, he might have to call jump back in.
Yeah.
You know, but
Yeah, but no, it's definitely been a long time coming, man. It's only right, you know, that someone like Tommy Dee get involved in this conversation. But what you think our odds are looking like this up against Atlanta?
you know, it's a great question. Trying to be realistic. You know what I'm saying? It's really like it's cliche, but it's one game at a time. You know, and I don't want to look ahead to anything or take for granted that like, oh, we got home court advantage, but it's gonna really come down to slowing down Trey Young. You know, and being a really strong defensive team like Tibbs is molded them to become, and keeping him from just running off quick shots, and making the game faster than it needs to be, in my opinion. You know what I'm saying? They're they're a younger style team, so you want to like play off New York style, '90s style basketball. These dudes, not completely because that day is over,
Yeah, you want to slow it
but
down.
slow the game down. You know what I'm saying? Take the shots that we want to take, give them the shots that they really have to work hard for. Let's see if
Yo,
tell me
sorry about
no
that.
reception.
Yeah, I just restarted
man.
the internet. Make sure we were good.
No worries, man. All right, we all good now, man. No,
There we
Tommy,
go.
I was just saying, like, if we never had a chance to speak on a platform like this, and I think if any time, this is the best time. You know what I mean?
You got it. Yeah, no doubt.
It's been a while. I've interacted with Tommy for a long time now. 10 years maybe or something, right?
More, yeah.
More than that,
yeah.
It's been a while, and we, fast forward to now, we're in a different space where everybody has a voice on another level. Everybody can become, I'm not going to say an expert, but a valued opinion maker. And you come from an era where you really had to grind, create that space, and show and prove that you have the chops to have this platform to put your opinion out to the world. So that's why I felt like it was a easy ask of you to be on this platform, because your journey, you know what I'm saying, is something that maybe the younger guys or girls or women, whoever, don't understand that to a degree. They just kind of jump on YouTube, they jump on Instagram, they jump on whatever, and now they have a platform. But I'd love to dive into your story, and we can go into all the Knicks craziness. You know what I mean? So just however your journey started with sports and everything, man.
Yeah, man. No, Justin, that means a lot, and we go back a long ways. And back in the early days when I did work my way into an opportunity with SNY. Very brash back then, still maybe a little bit, but listen, I thought this we can make an impact, and I had an idea, and people bought into it at SNY, which is great. Matt Cerrone, still a great friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Fred Harner. Ran their digital team for a very long time, did a great job building up that company. Brad Cuomo, Syracuse guy who, put a little bald-headed guy on TV. I don't even know if I had a beard back then, but I was, I didn't know what I was doing when I was on TV. I'm like, this is different. But because of people like you, Justin, and because of people, the fans who embraced what we were doing, it made us feel like we were really making an impact. And it's an impact that when I hear you say stuff like that, sort of gives me chills, because it's like, that stuff still happens, it's still relevant today. And when people come at me on Twitter because, I have, pretty solid opinion about who I think Elfrid Payton is as a person and as a professional or whatever, and they want to say, oh, you're just doing this to stay relevant, there's a lot of relevancy police out there, but for me, it's more about what we've been building together as a group and as individuals. I've always been one to sort of like, listen, let's put other people on sort of shy away from myself because I think opportunities are important for everybody. And once you get them, you got to just blast through the wall, full speed, go as fast as you can, go as hard as you can, and you'll make an impact. Some people may not like it. I mean, when we were being called bloggers back then, it was and it's still not a real term of endearment, but for beat writers and for people who are on TV and talking heads and all these people, it was a diss, man. They would diss us every chance they could get, just like anybody who's coming into a space and trying to change it up a little bit and be disruptive. So yeah, we took our lumps early on, but it's just cool to see that you and I can still stay connected on a platform like this, like yours. You can build yours. John can build his alongside of it. He can do his own thing. It's just amazing, and it's really it's great that it's become the norm. Back then it wasn't so much, but we made it here,
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Doug. Go ahead.
No, I was saying no. The road less traveled. It wasn't always popular to do what you're doing, but it's definitely paid off, and definitely congratulations on your accomplishments too. You came up a long way, paid your dues.
I gotta get me one of those shirts, man. That's a great shirt. But yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. Like I said before, it's just you take your lumps, and that is something that if you're not prepared for it, it could really eat you alive, and there are times where, it was, my wife would be looking at me and says, the numbers aren't really adding up, and those things, that still happens. Just depends what those numbers are. But at the end of the day, it's about what you believe in, what you want your focus to be, and how you want to make things better. And that's something that I've always believed in, and something that I've always strived to do on a day-to-day basis.
So just for some context for people that might not be aware, right? Because I have close friends that didn't even know that I was trying to be a sports writer, contributor. So way back when, I don't even know, like 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, something like that. I wanted to write for the Knicks, right? Because I'm a fan and I thought I had like some perspective that was noteworthy, right? And got on Twitter. That was way before Twitter was popping, and you had a big voice already on Twitter, and you had a Knicks fan, and so I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. I followed you. I followed everybody that would interact with you, and then blog.com through SNY, and I would just log in and try to understand like how these posts would work and how the writing was going, right? Because a lot of people know this, but for those that don't, like, I don't have a great formal education. I dropped out of school really early, and I didn't learn late. I didn't understand later that I had like a form of dyslexia. So like reading and writing skills weren't the greatest for me, but even still, I still wanted to contribute. You know what I mean? There wasn't Instagram back then. Facebook didn't have the same kind of like the way that we use Facebook now wasn't the way it was then. So having a blog or contributing to a blog was the thing to do, right? So trying to make an organic interaction with you is what I tried, what I started. And then eventually I asked you if I could be a contributor to the website, and you graciously were like, yeah, sure. Like, just like you explained, you wanted to see somebody get a shot, you know what I mean? And I started, I wrote terrible posts that I don't want anybody to read. But it was like my stupid perspectives on the Knicks. And I thought it was insightful or, I don't know.
They were insightful.
No, it was. I'm better in person than writing, you know what I mean? But nevertheless, it taught me a lot. And it gave me a framework and an understanding of how much of a grind these things are. Like you just explained, like how much energy and effort you have to put in. And the difference of what I wanted to do, right, is that I would say, okay, cool. Instead of me just watching Knicks games, my boy's here in the undisclosed patio. He's listening. He don't even know about this. I would pay so what I would do is the day of a game, I would go on StubHub or whatever the brokerage or whatever and pay for the highest ticket. So whether it be $400, $500, $600, $700, $800, and have a close view, and then try to report from that view. So like I had like a closer view. And then fast forward, and I want to give you your flowers and thank you publicly for this. When I got a little bit more acclimated to how these things worked and everything, I pitched you an idea. I said, hey, is it possible to get credentials through SNY to cover a Knick game in person? And you were like, oh, well, only on the road. And I was like, all right, well, it got to be somewhat realistic, right? I'm not going to Minnesota or whatever. So you got me a credential to cover the SNY for the Knicks on the road for a Nets game when they were still in New Jersey, which was a crazy experience, right? Just being in the area that I was and going in through the press area and being around, like, there was a bunch of people back then, like Moke Hamilton. I saw Stephen A. Smith, Frank Isola, Mark Berman. It's weird to see them in a different space than when you imagine what they write on a newspaper. And I'm not going to get into none of that behind the scenes stuff, but like, it was just.
We can if you want. I get it. We can.
I'm not here to like, what I'm saying? Like, shit talk people, but like, it was just different, like they fight. They used to fight all the time on social media, and they were like actually friends. It was weird, but because I assume like if I'm a beef with somebody on social media, when I see you, it's the same energy. But they weren't like that. And I realized, they just, they all work together, but they're sort of competition. It was a weird space, you know what I mean, that I wasn't necessarily used to. And then I got to cover the game. I got to be in the locker room post game, which was very weird and different. So I understand, to see all the reporters trying to get the same soundbite and I was like, wow, this is different. You know what I mean? So when I was able to put the perspective together that I don't think that most bloggers at the time were able to do. You gave me the opportunity, and I really appreciate that. I just want to put that out there and thank you for that.
No doubt. And for me, like, it was very similar because the experience, like you were saying, was not what you thought it was. That was me with not only that, but also TV as well. Like, everybody's like, oh, so cool to be on TV. It's really not. Like, it's very phony. It's very not to disrespect anybody who's really good at it, but like, it's just you're in an enclosed space. You're talking to someone who's sitting over there. Somebody's in your ear. There's a talent to it that people have, and you sometimes scratch your head and say, why is that person on TV? There's a reason. It's because they're good at managing 5 different people and all the craziness and trying to actually say something. It is a job. Don't get me wrong, and people are really good at it. I just was never comfortable with it, and I didn't love it. I guess they thought I was decent at it or whatever, but to your point, you get the experience, and then that tells you maybe this isn't for me. Maybe it is for me, But I think it's important, and I was always really big on getting people to understand sort of what I was going through, because the more people who understood what I was going through, the more they were going to understand me, and I think that's important. I didn't want to be somebody on the front side who was one way, and on the back side was different.
Yeah.
I never liked people who were like that. I never liked games. I never liked people who were phony. So, I just wanted to make sure that people were going to get the experience, and that was what came along with knowing me.
Yeah, that's dope, man. I mean, thank you for that. Thank you for
no doubt
putting together a platform like that, and giving a young dude a chance. Go ahead, though. I'm sorry.
That's how I got to talk to Charles Oakley that time when we went over there.
Well, it kind of that effect, right? So when I had the one credential, I was able to leverage that when I ended up getting the opportunity to contribute for now debunked or defunct, I don't know the word, right? It was not around anymore. A website called IamAGM.com. These 2 young guys started it. It was basically like a basketball news aggregator. So like they would just like post anything that was posted real, like lightning. They had a great algorithm. I don't know how they did it, but it would like, you see it now. There's a lot of accounts now, like NBA Legion and Hoops. There's a bunch of them now, but like at that time they had like the chokehold on it. So I went to them and I was like, yo guys, you got such a strong hold on social, and like they were like tech guys, so they knew how to aggregate like clicks and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, yo, can I get I'll pay for my own stuff. I'll do whatever. But if you can give me a pass, you can see what I did with SNY and Tommy, help me out. I could kind of maybe get a perspective on certain things. And then Charles Oakley did a collaboration with a clothing company, and I brought John with me, and that's how we met Oak that time downtown. But yeah, it was because of Tommy. It was because of you that I was able to even understand that framework and have that practice and everything like that.
And that's what the credentials are for. Yes, they are for covering. And I think SNY sort of got to a point where, they wanted somebody like Ian Begley who was going to be there every day. And, I was never going to be a beat writer. I never wanted to be. I wanted a platform for fans. I wanted people to be able to express their stories about, games like Sunday, which will be their first playoff experience. Some people's first playoff experiences were in the 90s. We were around the same age, so it's late 80s, early 90s, and there's a lot into being a Knicks fan. There's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of dynamics. There's a lot of everything, and it's not just about what Elfrid Payton's minutes or who should we be looking forward, towards in the off season from a draft perspective or a free agency. That stuff is important, but for me, it was about people. I learned that from Matt Cerrone, who was Mets blog, and what Matt did there was he had the company bring him in because he had such a big community. So to think about what we were able to do with Knicks blog at SNY, which was a competitive network, we weren't allowed any of MSG's feed. We couldn't use any of their video. We couldn't use any of their assets. We couldn't interview any of the players. That's why, Anthony Donahue, who I love and who's a brother and is doing so great for them now, that's who he is, and that's genuine. And one thing, like I said before, that we always wanted to make sure that we were and are is real and authentic. And I always say this on Twitter. It's like authenticity wins. That's what wins. It's not who's the loudest. It's not who's always first. It's who's, that's somebody who I want to watch a game with. That's someone who may say, you know what, he sees something that I don't see. And, I always, whether it's through a credential, whether it's through scouting, whether it's through coaching, I've always leaned on people who I knew saw more than I did. And that's how I could learn. And those are people I look up to. And I sort of feel bad on the younger generation, like people who come at me, they don't make me mad that I'm a big fan of Elfrid Payton. They just have no clue why I like him. Yeah. It's because he's a pro. It's because he shows up every night. It's because he may not be the best player, but he puts his minutes in. Yeah. He's the guy on the baseball team that pitches every 5 starts and throws 100 pitches. He may give up 4 runs, 5 runs, 6 runs, but he's giving you 7 innings. And those guys are valuable. That's a skill. And I learned that from people who played at the highest level. And those people respect those people. So if they respect them, then I respect them. And I think a lot of that is lost, especially now in Twitter and social media as a whole and Instagram and all that stuff. So being authentic for me is always going to win, I believe. And just being in a position where you can introduce yourself to people, tell people how much you respect them. You know how many times I would go up and talk to people. Patrick Ewing's one guy. We scouted next to each other, and here's a guy who's getting yelled at by fans because he won't sign autographs. We were at Fordham University 2 years ago, and guys come over with their kids at halftime, like expecting Patrick Ewing to take a picture with them because they're fans. And Patrick's like, I can't do it. I'm working. If I take a picture with you, then I'm going to have to take a picture with the other 3,000 people that are in this gym, and I'm trying to recruit this kid, and I'm trying to build a relationship. I'm doing my job. And the fans couldn't get it. I remember one guy getting so upset with them, and I turned to him. I'm like, you've had to deal with that your whole life. Like, how have you been able to do that? And instantaneously, we struck up a rapport, and it's that stuff to me is also extremely valuable. Living in other people's shoes, having empathy, understanding, and that's what I've always tried to do.
So, did you start scouting after, or you were already like you were scouting? Like, break it down for me.
So I was always I coached when I got out of. I could have played in college. I ended up playing a different sport, golf. There was a D1 level. I was like a D3 basketball player. But I knew when I didn't play basketball in college that I was going to have a hard time coaching in college, because it always seemed like you had to play to coach, and then if you coached, then you moved along. So because I didn't do that, I made that decision at 18. Because I didn't do that, I sort of always regretted it. Not regretted it, but like just something that I wish I had done to stay around basketball because I love the game so much. So I was able to coach in high school, and then the SNY opportunity started up where I was doing some writing. I met a guy called Ryan Blake through a friend of mine called Anthony Marino, who's a big marketing guy at American Cancer Society. His name is escaping. His title is escaping me right now. But he would do the events, and he's just a unbelievable people person. And he was like, Ryan Blake, whose father literally invented scouting for the NBA. His name's Marty Blake. He was going on this trip for cancer awareness, basically jumping on his motorcycle, going to scout games, and he was coming up to New York, and his last stop was at Madison Square Garden for a college game. So Anthony and hooked it up. Ryan and I met, and I just said to him, listen, if there's any way that you could help me, or I could help you, not you could help me, I could help you, writing some local games or whatever. He's like, no problem. Here's my email. I'll send you a schedule. And boom, right away, I was doing Division II games. I was driving out to Massachusetts. I was driving out to overnight to Connecticut, doing all that stuff. So that got me into Portsmouth Invitational is a big NBA showcase for the seniors. So I've been really doing that for about the last 10 years or so. Didn't do it so much since the pandemic, but it's been a great relationship and something that I just really enjoyed.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, we're doing.
But
So now, can let me ask you, where's your entry level? What was your entry level love for the Knicks? Like, when did that start? That relationship as a Knicks fan, like the inception of it, the very beginning.
My love for the Knicks started. I remember the 1984 playoff series pretty vividly. Bernard King, Isaiah Thomas, Hubie Brown. That was just for me like a Pontiac Silverdome. Yeah, it was the Garden Silverdome, which was like this old school Detroit where Detroit played. There was always like people were literally smoking cigarettes, so you could see in the lights like there was just like all smoke everywhere. It was just this weird, this amazing environment that Isaiah Thomas, was just obviously best player on the floor. But the Knicks, I believe, won that series, if my memory serves. Maybe I don't remember it as well as I should have. But that's when it all started for me. Then Bernard King gets hurt the next year. They are the worst team in the league. They win the NBA lottery, and they draft Ewing. And I remember still to this day, 1985, my dad was driving me to one of our soccer games. I played soccer as a kid on a travel team, and we were all like, huddling up the cars and the van or whatever to go drive out to Long Island or wherever we were playing. And I remember on the radio they announced the Knicks won the lottery and they're going to take Patrick Ewing, and that was really it, man. From then on, I love Ewing at Georgetown.
The frozen
New York. The alleged frozen envelope, the Bill Simmons theory. Everybody, so for around here, it was St. John's, Georgetown, right? Big East.
Yep.
And for me, it was I just loved Georgetown. I loved Ewing. They played hard defense. He was a big skilled player. Like I'd never seen it. I was too young for Kareem around here. And, everybody talked about how amazingly talented he was. Obviously still is. He's still the all-time NBA leading, scoring record, all-time scorer. But Ewing was just a guy who was bigger than life. And I love that. And he had a chip on his shoulder, and he didn't care what room he came into. He thought he was the baddest guy there, and he always was. And, the Knicks needed him at that time, and he needed them. And, he ended up having a great career. And we know he fell a little short, but ever since then, it's always been like, hey, I've seen my teams win. I've seen the Knicks. I've seen the Giants win. I've seen the Mets win. I've seen the Rangers win in '94. Just haven't seen the Knicks yet. So part of Knicks blog too, as well, was like sort of this just quest to try to have everybody celebrate a championship together. And so that's 2010. really was when we ramped everything up, 2010, 2011, which was the chase for LeBron. And I mean, we had almost 100,000 people on the site at once that night.
Yeah.
I think we broke SNY's server or something. We did something wild that night. And yeah, I was scheduled to go on TV. Funny story. I was scheduled to do this TV spot, and I just remember being like in an antsy mood sort of all day, because like I was getting stuff on my phone like it's gonna be Miami, but like I was already kind of booked to do the show, so I sort of I knew it ahead of time, but I didn't tweet anything. And then once he announced Miami, I was like, man, I got to go back and be on the computer and be in the forums and make a post and be with my people, because no shit, we had 100 people on that site that night who were just refreshing. And for me, I thought for me to go on TV, and trust me, the producers were not happy with me. And it's probably why they didn't put me on TV after that. But which was fine with me. Like I just really needed to be with my people at that particular moment in my life. And I don't regret it. I'm really happy that I did, and I was.
Man. You know, as you mentioned Patrick Ewing, man, I've always felt like the way his career ended in New York was sort of a karmatic shift that wouldn't allow us to get someone like LeBron. So I was never really sold on it. You know, I never really thought we had a chance of even to this day. I feel like we lucked up with Randall just being, you know, falling in that spot and being that guy he is with that character. But I think that was probably the only way that we were gonna get that kind of player, because I feel like the way that things ended with Ewing, it just doesn't go down like that. He's the best player we've ever had, and you know, he's just not represented correctly still to this day, in my opinion. You know what
though? I mean, in all reality, right? We probably spot. So this is where being a fan and being realistic don't meet, right? Like, we probably should have been paying attention to the writing on the wall. Like, we drafted Ewing, right? We didn't sign big players. That wasn't our MO.
Yeah.
We didn't bring people. So we assumed that because we from New York, that we just better than everything else. You know, and I grew up thinking that, right? A lot of people did. I always thought like everything else was slow, right? Outside of like California. So that why wouldn't LeBron come here? Why wouldn't Wade or whoever? Fast forward to Kyrie and KD. And a multitude of reasons probably why they chose to go other places. But I think, though, you hit it on the head. I think there was a weird vibe between the fraternity of players about how the treatment to our great.
I mean, I don't even know if it was like a planned thing. I just feel like it was just some karmatic energy, because we've drafted great after that. If you look at the Knicks drafts, like, I can't say that we've had some really real gems along the way after that. From Trevor Reza, David Lee.
No, we got Latrell on like a situation, right? Because
but specifically in drafts,
outside of that, we weren't
drafted
like
great.
Yeah, I mean, we drafted okay. We drafted good. We didn't draft great.
I would say great.
We got hurt. Great. Curry should have came to the Knicks, but
that was close.
That was too close.
That
right?
was crazy. Passing on Donovan Mitchell. Hold on. But what I mean is the people that we
There's been some mistakes.
There's been a lot of fault to be passed around
over the years. You know,
I agree with that. I agree with the draft. They not the franchise guy. I think finally, you know, now with the RJ for the first time drafting then that top three, you know, to get a pillar like RJ. But I think to John's point, 100%, it needed to take a Julius Randle to take the opportunity presented to him and run with it and do what he's doing now.
Yep.
To get people in the league to understand that. You know, winning here is different. Like, instead of it just being talk. Now, listen, we know what happened with Melo. They made the Melo trade. They gave up a lot of people and they gave up a lot of assets. You roll the dice in those situations that Melo is going to be a guy who's going to perform for you every single night, like Ewing did for however many years, and have people want to come and play with him. And, you know, as much as everybody loves Melo, and I love Melo too, I think he's been as important to the league and for Everything that's going on in the world right now is anybody and it's any athlete. But he had nights where he just wasn't all there and he wasn't all into it. And then people could say it was about Phil, and that's fine. But great players don't make excuses, right? You show up every night. If your team isn't what you think it should be around you, then you make those players better. And that's a criticism of his. But the organization, I think, would also agree that they didn't do everything for him. So I think both parties were wrong. The overall point being, Randall now with the clean slate, the front office looked at him, Leon Rose looked at him, Wes looked at him, and Scott Perry, who brought him in, said, listen, this is your show. We believe in you. We're going to put you in a situation where you're going to have every opportunity to be successful. What are you going to do with it? They hired Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau said, get in shape. I'm going to put you in a situation where you're going to be incredibly successful. Stick to the program. The magic words in basketball that Melo did not have all the time. This may be, a criticism, but it's true. It's called buy-in. Julius Randle buys in to everything the organization is doing, everything the coach is doing, and they're having success. It's not that simple, but it's a big part of why they're being successful why they've been successful to this point. And I credit Randle because he saw the opportunity, he believed in people, he trusted everybody. Trust is a word that hasn't been used here in a long time.
Yeah.
Now there's, and I think it goes back to, as John was saying, goes back to the Ewing years and the end of those years. But that's not the case anymore. And now they have their picks, right? Now they have their picks. Now they have their cap space, and now they can move forward. And it's a really exciting.
I love what's going on. Look, I'm a big Tibbs fan, Derrick Rose fan, so I'm good. But in Melo's defense, sort of, I think that things were all over the place. That time it was good to go watch the games. And to be a Knicks fan during that era, that I do remember, just like the games being live. But I just didn't understand how Kurt Rambis was coaching a triangle offense team, and through Phil Jackson. So
Melo couldn't either.
That's why I could see Melo sitting there, just like wondering what's going on, and then when things started happening with I think who we had at the time was Hardaway, and then we drafted Porzingis, and then traded him while at draft night while he was there with Melo. I was just
Hardaway. I remember that.
I was like, that's kind of weird. So I could see this not working out from here on out.
And that's not a knock on Melo. I mean, for sure. The fact that the buy-in just didn't happen. I'm not saying like he didn't buy in. It just didn't exist, and that's the key. That's the difference.
I agree with you, but I just feel like these are things that a lot of fans don't know or think about. So like it's like we know this, so we'll be sitting there, knowing all of this is going on, but the average fan is just thinking, whatever. So it's just like, I saw that kind of crashing early.
Melo's situation
night
was so messy, right? As the kids say, right?
I was cheering.
Mm-hmm. It was messy, because it wasn't his game that was the problem. I mean, it wasn't his talent. Let me say that it wasn't his talent. It was just everything else. Like you said, like
it was a disaster, bro.
When it went left for him even on the court, it showed. Like he wore all his emotion right in front of everybody. Like
that's what you love about him. That's what everybody loves about him.
But good and bad, though. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
like
if he was really frustrated with the game and it didn't look like he was getting back on defense, we were quick to criticize. You know what I mean? But then he's quick to hit a big shot and make us feel like we could have, achieved everything. So it wasn't.
Insanity happened.
It was an all or nothing situation with Carmelo Anthony. Like, you know what I mean?
John's taking us down Linsanity Road, man.
I mean, no, it was some weird times when you think
there was
about
a lot going on, bro.
It was a lot going on during those times.
There was a lot going on.
It was crazy, weird times. You know what I mean? It was fun times. You know, it was fun. Ironically, right? We talking about Melo, right? And I was texting in a group texting, and I put it on Twitter. Nobody cared, but like, I'm curious of your thought, right? Like, who had a better season, Melo's 2010 season or Randle's season this year?
Melo's 2010 season in Denver?
No, not
2012.
2012. I said 2010.
Oh,
2012.
So Melo's 2000. Oh, when they went to the playoffs?
Yeah. That's what I'm sorry.
I mean, Melo was better.
Melo was
Melo. So I mean,
Melo was hitting game winners. Mad game winners.
Randall's a better all-around player this year than I think Melo's ever been. That's just not his game. Melo's a guy who just you can win a game offensively running the ball, running everything through Melo.
Word.
Julius likes to make plays for teammates, and he to me seems like a really fun guy to play with. When Melo's on, he's probably one of the most fun guys to play with in the entire league's history.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he had games back then that was, hitting game winners against the Bulls and, just like almost 40 a night easy and, winning games, being up 15 in the third quarter, being up, 10 after the first and, not even having it be sweating in the fourth quarter. This team will make you sweat it out, which you love it about them because they're defenders. But I think when they were able to surround Melo with all those veterans, Rashid and Jason Kidd, Kurt Thomas, Camby, it just brought something. I think it brought relief to him that he didn't need to lead, and that those guys would sort of take the reins. And he was fantastic that year. Probably the best year any Knick has ever had when you think about it.
Yeah,
he made it look good.
He dropped 50 a few times.
And if he banged it on Roy Hibbert's head, then they win that series and they give LeBron a series. I mean, I
think everything went left for them in the playoffs with the J.R. Smith, Jason, like getting suspended and everything. And then I don't know what happened to Tyson Chandler, man. He's just got outplayed.
So well, Chandler came in the next year. He was hurt. And, no, Chandler did come in that year. So you're right. That was the same year.
Hibbert,
you're right, 100%.
Like outplayed him.
Hibbert, that's exactly right. You're right.
It was weird. It was just like
and then disappeared. Hibbert disappeared and then immediately after
kind of went into the mist.
That was it for him. And then here comes – go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was going to say –
Hibbert just came to destroy a Knicks dream and go back into the cave. And haven't heard from him since.
The good part about this whole scenario, right? The best part about it is it did really feel like a go for it moment in 2012. Like just go as far as you can. This doesn't feel like that. This feels like the beginning of something great. And we're just overachieving in that beginning process. Like they're getting way farther than I thought. I thought they were going to be burned out maybe. I didn't think like you mentioned before how Randall bought in just with the physicality and the minutes played situation. I thought that by now this would wane on him too much. And it hasn't, So we seem hopeful as opposed to before where it was like, wishing, like, all right, just go as far as you can. You know what I'm saying?
The J.R. Smith thing is it's a standout and it's a great point, and it's a standout memory and a great point because I remember when the Knicks from the 90s, and JB, you probably do too, when they came out after those trips to College of Charleston, and they had the black sneakers and the shaved heads. They were a different team. They brought a different vibe, and the whole thing was a different energy.
Yep.
Like from the regular season, like that wasn't the same team. They were not the same individuals, and they definitely just brought this different aura. And that to me really had an impact on their opponents. And you could see them just sort of imposing their will on those games. And you could see like, wow, this machine is moving. It's going to move through this round. It's going to play the next round. They're going to move through that round too. And then you could just see it moving. And with that team in 2012, like there was a similar aura. They were starting to move. Melo was starting to play well. The year before, they were playing good too. Amari gets hurt. They end up losing that series in 5 games, but that first game they should have won.
Yep.
And they were starting to get going too. But that 2012-13 team, all of a sudden it stopped when JR acted a fool. And for whatever reason,
it killed the chemistry.
It just, the aura exploded. They come out in game 1. They still had to win game 4 against the Celtics. They do that. So it was only, I guess, 5 games. But game 1, they were flat against the Pacers. They lose that first game at home, and they lose the advantage in the series. And, those 90s Knicks teams would never have let that happen in game 1. if they were really seriously thinking about contending. Like that focus just left them like that, and they never were able to get it back.
Exactly. It's so hopeful, right? And I go back and use that word again. It's because you're gonna have the pundits or the talking heads and all these kind of people talk about who the Knicks might get moving forward and what could happen. And I don't even care about that kind of stuff anymore, right? I feel like the people that should come to this team because they've built an idea, a framework of what it looks like, is the right people that should be there. You know, whatever pieces they add and whoever, you know, doesn't stay on the team it's how it should be, right? Like we might have got a blessing in disguise, not, you know, Kyrie and KD not coming. Maybe they just wouldn't have bought into the situation like you mentioned before. They might have been like, oh, this is not what we're looking to be a part of, you know?
Well, Kyrie doesn't strike me as the type, and I know a lot of people who know Kyrie, and I you know, people think the world of him, and I do too. You know, what he's, again, like Melo, what he's doing is super important, and you know, it's bigger than basketball, and we all recognize that it's essential. But he doesn't strike me like the biggest buy-in guy all the time either. You know, like you go back to him leaving LeBron. You know, for whatever reason he left, and you know, for whatever reason he didn't want to play Game 7. I know he was hurt and he had this stuff with his you know, the sinus infections in Boston, but he didn't even, I don't think he showed up for that Game 7. That wouldn't fly here with the Knicks. Like that, you couldn't do that playing for this organization, which is why he's not here. Durant, on the other hand, I think Durant wanted a challenge. I think he got hurt. That changed things for him, because I know he's very mindful of his legacy and winning here. Being in this position, being a 1 or 2 seed with an aging LeBron in the late, you know, in LA, was a perfect opportunity for KD to come here, win one for the Knicks, and just skyrocket.
Yeah.
Imagine that. But yeah, listen, it's all turned out, and the way it's turned out, and the Nets are a bit of an afterthought again. And, you know, the Knicks have stolen everybody's hearts, and there's a reason why. They play hard, they play every night, and you know, it's fun to see, I think, for sure. I'm having fun watching them, and I gotta say too, like, yeah, like, you know, they make fans sweat the games out, but like I've watched games where I'm like a third quarter in a 5-point game, and you see people freaking out about Elfrid Payton. I'm like, they're winning. I'm like, they're winning this game. Like, I've seen so many games, and you see what they do night over night. Like, they're winning this game. Like, they have a chemistry where someone will come in. If it's Alec Burks, you know, he's been hurt a little bit, but Bullock will make a shot. Even if they're down 7, 8, 9 points, like someone will hit a 3, and then they'll get a big rebound, and then another, you know, the next thing you know, it's a 3-point game, and then, you know, then the tide turns. There's just something different about this group. And they've been really easy to watch this year for me. Like they're so consistent. It's great.
Can I ask you about Elfrid Payton? Because like my up until you talking about him, Tommy, my dad is the only one that really like say he likes Elfrid Payton. Like I don't dislike him. I don't have, but you and my dad really like him. So what's your deal with that? What do you know about him that I don't, or that Justin doesn't? What do you and my dad know about him that we don't? I guess no, not hate, but they like him. They're big on him. So I'm asking, like, what is it? You know, maybe
what do I know?
Some of the haters.
So I try. I mean, listen, I know he's not the answer. I know he's the answer to a 41-win team and a 4 seed that everybody thought was going to win 19 games. So I know that's who he is. I also know he's a really good teammate. He's a professional. He's an easy guy to like, easy guy to root for. Probably has had one foot out of the league more than once. Keeps coming back, and you know, shows up every night. And I guess the best compliment you can give a player is, yes, there are things that he's really not good at. Can he shoot? No. Does he miss layups? Yes. Is he at times an overrated defender? Okay, sure. But he does little things that go unnoticed that the coach can see from 5 feet away and on tape that make him have to be in the lineup. And all the coach has to do is tell Julius Randle, this is why he needs to be in the game. and everybody else will follow in line and say, okay, he needs to be in the game. His teammates respect him, and in a year where everybody should be overjoyed at the success, why people are hating on him is taking away from that, and it's doing nothing good for the team. It's doing nothing good for any players who look at it from the outside and say, ooh, if I don't play good, then this is what I'm going to have to deal with. Fans just have this need to want to hate on on players that I just don't like, and I'm happy to take the brunt of it because I think it's stupid. And making posts under pictures of his kid, trolling his mom, saying you never should have had Elfrid, stuff like that is just outrageous. And I've called out every blogger or whoever to say this is not right. Bagley's done a nice job of saying some things about it. Other people, not so much. CP from Knicks Fan TV, yes, he said it. It's good, really good stuff too. Other people, not so much. You can't really hate on a guy like that, in my opinion. Everybody has a voice; they're allowed to say what they have to say, and I have my own as well. But to answer the question, I just think he's a guy that his teammates rally around and is there every night for them. Derrick Rose is hurt. Peyton steps up. I think the last week what you saw is an exhausted player who wants to make sure that quickly is 100%, wants to make sure that Derrick Rose is 100% for these playoffs. And, they had to win down the stretch to get home court advantage, so he had to play. So you didn't see his best games. There's a recency bias with his bad play. He hasn't been that bad all year. He's actually been pretty good. So I root for guys like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm rooting for him too. I like our team at the moment. Everybody. I don't have really too much negativity. Which is rare.
I mean,
I'm big on. I like the squad.
I love
it. It's awesome.
It's a crazy thing too, right? Because most of the players on this team are on a flyer, right? And they play their heart out.
They're not playing for contracts.
They're not playing for contracts.
That's a fact.
It's the weird.
These guys are playing for each other.
So the fact that we kill Peyton, right? Yes, some shots he takes or misses, and I'm like, oh god. But he'll make it up 3 seconds later, but we just don't even want to acknowledge that, right? Because he
plays hard.
He plays extremely hard, and he has the physicality to defend, right? So in all reality, we need him to be really successful in this Atlanta series to really give, somewhat of a fit to Trae Young. I mean, he's not going to stop him because the guy could do whatever he wants, but to really slow his game down to a point that plays to the Knicks style, Go ahead.
Listen, the knocks are he can't shoot. You look at his shooting percentage. Oh, he's not a great passer. Well, his assist numbers are low because you run the offense through Randall, who passes a lot, and RJ Barrett also passes a lot. So Peyton is not going to get a lot of assists by default because he's not triggering the offense, right? He's relied upon to make shots and take the shots that he gets. So he gets those little floaters in the lane. They run pick and roll. Sometimes he gets a lob to Noel or back in the day it was Robinson. By the way, does Elfrid Payton miss Mitch Robinson as much as anybody? Absolutely. How many more assists would he have if you were throwing lobs to Mitch Robinson all game? But nobody wants to talk about that. They want to talk about the lack of rebounding, the lack of passing. And, after the first quarter, they're losing by 4 points or 5 points or whatever, which means nothing in the NBA game. And by the way, all year, they were sixth in the league in first quarter differential. They were winning on average 2 points after every first quarter. The lion's share of his minutes are in the first quarter. And also, by the way, what's their team strength? Their team strength is Rose coming off the bench and absolutely destroying the other team's bench. And you want to maintain that. Why would you take Derrick Rose out of a situation where he's performing extraordinarily, put him with starters, and then have to figure the rotation out after that? That doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't make any sense.
With the same situation that you're mentioning with Derrick Rose and Peyton, I've always said that, in my opinion, that sort of situation is the same for Kevin Knox and now Obi, because most of that's Julius Randle slot and RJ. So I feel like a lot of people feel like Kevin Knox has been a real question mark as far as what his potential is and what you've gotten out of it. And now with Obi, I also feel like he has a crazy ceiling but we're stacked at those spots right there. So like, you know, how do we get the most out of our talent in those positions that we have, you know, that we seem to have too many people?
It's an issue, I think. I don't think it's it's something that's going to break the team apart or cause anybody to get fired. But your first round picks certainly need to be put in situations where they can perform, or else people are going to have to answer for why those assets are not developed. I agree with you. I think Obi has a hard time playing with Randall, and Tibbs trusts Randall to a point where he plays him the extra minutes at the expense of Obi. So, his minutes go from maybe playing 18 to 20 to all of a sudden he's playing 8 or 10. And that has an impact on a young player. So, does that mean Randall's going to play the 5? We haven't seen that much. You may see that if the Hawks decide to go small and play Gallinari at the 5 in this series, which is possible. I think the Hawks,
another Knicks draft. Another Knicks
draft. The X factor for me in this series for the Hawks is Danilo Gallinari, aka the Rooster, aka Dino. My first interview at the Knicks blog, by the way, we sat down next to him. He's 18 years old. It definitely makes me feel old because I felt old then when he was 18, and now he's about 31, 32. So that was quite a while ago. But I think he's going to have an impact on this series for the Hawks. And does that mean that Julius Randle's going to play some 5 minutes? And Obi plays some at the 4. We haven't seen that enough this year. So I think in order for Obi to play more minutes, they'll probably have to go back to the drawing board this summer to see how else they can utilize him. And that may be him having to move to the 3 and playing more minutes as small forward.
And what does that mean for Kevin Knox? Because I really think that, when seeing him come in, I really thought he was going to be, something pretty impactful coming into the team because, he's got the build, he's got the athleticism. But
the thing with Knox has never been the talent. It's been about sort of the focus and earning the trust from the coaches to stay on the floor defensively. If he does, you see when Obi makes a mistake, Tibbs takes him right out of the game. And, he recognizes what he needs to do better. He comes back in the game, doesn't make the same mistakes. So if a player comes back in the game and makes the same mistakes as why he came out first time, which has happened with Knox, coach is going to have a hard time putting him back in. And if that happens repeatedly, then they just don't go in at all because then they're just not getting the message. And that seems to me to be the case with Knox.
Yeah, he looks lost on defense. I mean, he looks
he's
like
definitely a riding pine.
No, he looks like it looks like he might have the same mistakes in practice, and Tibbs is like, I'm not gonna.
That's what I'm saying too. How many times are you gonna see it? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you're just not figuring it out. And like you mentioned, John, like he has what we wish for from these players that you draft.
He looks like Kevin Durant walking in the court. He looked like
he's got a soft jumper. Kevin Durant's his favorite player.
Yeah.
But
he's still a very, very young player. It's like with Frenton Ntilikina. Yeah. He's still a very, very young player. That's not someone that you just decide that you're not going to employ anymore because he can catch on with another team and all of a sudden he's putting up 25 on you, in December the next year. So,
and I'm afraid of that. To be honest with you, I didn't want to be the one to say it, but I'm afraid of that with someone like Kevin Knox. I don't know who I was saying, but I feel like if San Antonio was looking for somebody or trying to shop it, I feel like that was a good landing spot for
him. The Nets? Imagine he goes to if he went to the Nets and all of a sudden, they get matched up in the playoffs here, the next couple of years and he's killing this with dagger 3-pointers. That would be, that would be tough to stomach especially if you didn't get anything in return.
We got a lot of good problems right now.
Yeah, that's a fact. That is plus you got two. Listen, you got 3 more draft picks coming in this year, unless you package them for maybe another player, which could be the case. But you got a lot of the cupboard is full as they used to say back in the day, filled with talent.
And even you mentioned like if we packaged a player,
what do we need? What hold on.
What I was gonna say is before, right, in prior years, like in the last, let's say 15 years, whatever, we're like pushing, like do whatever to get this person, do whatever to get this person. Now we've learned, right? Like the player would have to want to come here. So it'd be a situation where X player is pushing to come to the Knicks. And then we say, okay, what do we need to make it happen? As opposed to us, you look like you're in demand. It's like trying to get a girl and you got no you got no swag or nothing like that, as opposed to like sitting back, scouting the room, and then they find you and they're like, oh, I like this guy. You know what I mean?
I like to say the greatest recruiting tool is opportunity, right? What you see from Alec Burks right now, if you're a shooter, if you're a Bradley Beal, you see Alec Burks doing his thing, and that's an opportunity for an upgrade potentially for a player like Bradley Beal. So if you're Beal, you're looking at, if I got plugged in there, I'd be an upgrade. That's a good opportunity for me, and we could maybe go take it to the next level. So when you look at those other positions too, obviously Peyton we talked about is one. I happen to like Burks a lot, but if there's a chance to get an all-star caliber player or someone maybe a little bit higher, you've got to think about it at that position, as well as not RJ's position, but maybe the 5 spot that allows for Randall to maybe bump out to the perimeter a little bit more. But you have Mitchell Robinson they've got to make a decision on. So if not the Rudy Gobert would become available, but a player at that center position who could be a difference maker would be an upgrade to a Nerlens Noel, would be an upgrade to a Mitch Robinson. So those are the type of guys. Those are what you're seeing now is success being laid down. The groundwork is there. The pillars are there. Now it's about recruiting.
Nerlens Noel has to stay. Has to stay.
I like Nerlens as well. He is not a bust. And do not call Kwame Brown a bust on this, or he's coming for you.
Oh yeah,
Kwame
has been on one. Kwame has been.
I'm with him. I'm here for it. I am with him.
I'm glad you.
I want more.
I'm glad you brought Kwame because
I'm here for it.
A perfect example of a punching bag that people don't understand what's really going on, right? He was put in a tough spot, right? Drafted by the greatest. Expectations
out of high school
as a kid. Yep. I mentioned before, my education situation. I couldn't imagine doing anything as that responsible as trying to take care of my whole family and everything like that, and having the responsibility of all these different things that come with it. Some people have that personality and that aura. Most don't. Majority of people are not prepared to take that step, and then to have a shadow like that in your presence all day,
your ear, on your back,
on your neck. So I get it why he was basically like. It's one thing when the talking head does it. It's another thing when the people that's supposed to know on a different level diss me. You know what I mean?
You heard him. Yeah. You heard him. The fraternity. And that's what it is. You can't be talking out of school, and they were, and that's good for him. And you could see they will apologize pretty quickly.
Exactly. And I like Steve Jackson. I think Gilbert Arenas is hilarious.
I love the show. I love the show.
There's no reason to put down somebody like that.
I love the show, but there is something to be said about, just for your own pleasure, like playing ignorant. You get what I'm saying? We do know that there's journalism, right? There's respected criticism, but at the same time, you are talking about someone in their youth, in their youth. Like, how many of us had cameras, contracts, and all kind of other shit following us through our teenage years, and responsibilities on top of that? So I feel like, people sort of get jaded into whatever genre of entertainment they're doing that allows them to sort of just talk loosely over things without providing context. You get what I'm saying? Because regardless of people want to call him a bust, want to call Noel Nerlens a bust. Even if you want to talk about Shaq not hitting a free throw, right? Well, I don't even care. Those guys are all elite, right? Now, if you might want to say, well, hey, they're the least elite out of the elite at something, whatever. But they're elite, bro. What are you elite at, right? It's
It's 100% true, and it's so funny when you stop and think about it, because the content cycle just goes so fast in a circle, and now it's just going like this. Like back when we were doing it at SNY, like I was doing this, and was a big part of, we were just always out there, which is great. But now it's the norm, and you got to stop and think for a second what these guys said, man. I've never heard a player call another player a bust. Like I've never heard anybody say, especially one that played with them, like that word to me amongst players is like the worst thing that you could call somebody, right? Like it just means that, to what you were just saying before, John, like all that work that you did to get to that point, to take care of your family, to get drafted, to get the contract, to play with Michael Jordan doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
right? Because you didn't become a Hall of Famer, or because you didn't become an X-time All-Star, or because you didn't make All-NBA. Like, that's what I always laugh about busts. I'm like, dude,
and some people,
like these guys
some
are the
people
top
might
of
have
their
had a better card
careers.
than you, right? Right or wrong, Tommy. Some people might have had a better hand to play than you. So yeah, he might have got picked first out of high school, all of this stuff. But hey, I didn't get to play with these guys over here and get a championship on the bench, or even if you contributed, whatever. But you know what I mean? So, but I don't know. I just feel like people talk all this stuff when it's beneficial about mental health and all of this caring stuff, but you're gonna constantly talk about the same shit over and over. You know what I mean? That is probably hurting someone.
Bro, let's keep it real, okay? Kwame Brown could walk into 99.9% of gyms and
air it out, air it the fuck out.
Most people today, okay? Because you don't get to the league and play on that level and earn $60+ million over the course of 13 seasons
being trash,
skilled. I think maybe there was a lot of shit going on in his life, or just different things, or maybe coaching didn't connect.
I mean, why don't they talk about some
on a level that people expect?
Like, what's the dude from Golden State that we were heckling when he last time that he went to the Pistons? He was a bruiser, the Zaza guy.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Kwame Brown is better than him. But Kwame Brown is better than him. I can tell you confidently, Kwame Brown is better basketball player than him.
There's a
right? Am I wrong?
The unfortunate.
I mean, there was a time where Kwame Brown was better than 25. Maybe only 25 centers were better than him in the entire world, right? Like you're talking about a top 25 person at their position in the world. Like that's a lot.
Millions of people
there's a lot of people.
Billions of people try this game.
He's top 25. That's not bad.
It's a crazy world. It's a crazy time.
But I'm here for him setting the record straight. And saying, listen, I know why you're talking. I just don't like what I'm hearing and why you're doing it. That's for me where it's like, okay, now you're talking about all the smoke, you're talking about the real. That's what I love. That's what I really respect. That's 100% real.
It was a lot of funny shit that he said, right? He was talking crazy. It was comical. But one thing in one of his rants or whatever responses the word is that he said that was interesting to me is when he talked about Gilbert Arenas specifically not passing him the ball and costing him money in his contract. I said, that's a real gripe. Like that's some real shit to be really mad at somebody about. And the fact that he never came out and said that just goes to show you how people are, like take to a consideration like what should be sacred and what shouldn't be. You know what I mean? So I understand why he would come out like this, because you literally took money away from him just by not passing him the ball, not giving him some stats that his agent could have leveraged, a better deal for him.
And not airing that out to me shows a lot of character. Sure. I mean that to me is grade A character, and just all of a sudden saying, "What did I just hear? I know he's not talking about me. Now I got to bring it up. I've been holding this in this whole time to myself, dealt with it, probably put it away somewhere and doesn't bug him, looks at what he has and says, this is great. But he's content with what he's done, and to have it be brought up like that was, it just was uncalled for, really, in my mind.
Yo,
And
he should have spoke up more. He should have spoke up a long time ago. You know why? Because I like him so much more. He's real down to earth. And you know what? I think sometimes just your voice not being heard is probably the only thing that keeps people from liking you. Because he's speaking from the gut and he's kicking real shit. You know, he's giving it up straight from the gut. And if he was saying this, maybe, well, you know, he had binding contracts, so he probably couldn't. But you know, I'm kind of glad that he's saying his piece. You know, yeah, it's entertaining with all the ignorance and whatever, but within it, he's talking, he's getting to the point. You know, he's getting to the point.
It's a gift
For
and a
sure.
curse with access now, right? So like we got people that don't understand a journey, right? This is why the Amish podcast is it's why me and John came up with it, right? During COVID, and we thought like, you know, we just want to talk with people about their journey and pay homage to them, because there's so much more layers to things that people need to understand about scenarios and situations and the strive for something, you know. So like it's one of them things, like a professional athlete had to go through a lot to get to where they at. So yeah, we could debate who's better and all that kind of stuff, but there's no reason to put them down as a person. There's no reason to take away money from them, right? Like I don't see that that's ever a situation. So with access, right, we think that we know everything now, right? We think that we know everything about these people because we can just click on and watch a clip and look at a highlight and look at a advanced metrics and think like, oh, he ain't shit because of XYZ, without having any conceptual knowledge of what the scenario is, right? And I'm not saying you have to play a sport to understand it, but you got to understand it to talk about it, in my opinion. In some fashion.
100%.
It's
100%.
like, you know, there's a lot of reporters that never played, but they've been around the game so long that they got to understand the game at a different level, whatever that sport might be.
I had somebody on Twitter today, and my son wants me to put him to bed, so I'm going to have to wrap it up here in a second. But I appreciate you guys so much, man. I can't wait to do this again.
Sure. For sure.
You know what happens when the kids come banging on the door and it's time to go to bed. But I'll finish with this. I had somebody on Twitter say to me, like, listen, man, you know, I'm not coming at you, but you know, you've been defending this, and yeah, but you know, and it's like, you know, I've associated myself with Elfrid Payton now. You know, it's like, okay, this is the hill that you're dying on, and whatever even that means. But he said, you know, help me understand it. Like, I really want to learn like what you were thinking. And I'm like, well, listen, I mean, if you scouted or if you coached or if you played, to Justin's point, like you have to have that. That'll give you a level of understanding that at this point in time, making a starting lineup change could really alter a lot of the stuff that has happened. It could be basketball's a rhythm game. If all of a sudden Julius Randle looks over and sees Frank Ntilikina instead of Peyton, you know, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's not a good thing. The maybe part of it is the risk. What we do know is the constant, and that is 41 wins, and that is what has what has been the fourth seed in the home court advantage. So going into game one, there's zero reason, and any coach or player would tell. The only players that wouldn't tell you that are the ones who want to steal those minutes from the point guard. But if they actually don't get that, you don't want them on your team anyway. The togetherness and the understanding of what it means to stick with what's working as you're going into a series. You can always adjust. You can adjust during games. But the lack of understanding, I think, from the fans is really what's showing in the lack of empathy for guys like Elfrid Payton, who, like Kwame Brown, is the punching bag for all Knicks fans. And, you know, there's going to come a point in time where some dude's not going to want that, and it's going to be you know, sort of going off on all the fans. But we don't have to worry about that for this year.
You know what happens? People turn into punching bags, right? And then go to San Antonio like Nazir Muhammad and win a ring. So we don't, you know, that's what happens in New York. But or you know, or Trevor Ariza or who these guys.
We really appreciate you giving us some time and, you know, talking about the journey and talking sports. And I want to talk more about it as the playoff continues. Hopefully, you know, we go deeper or whatever, or extend this as long as we can.
Yeah, man.
And we can talk more about it. And if not, I just want to dive into more stuff because people take away these little gems and they could bring them home and apply it to whatever they're doing with their self and hopefully, further along their journey.
Listen, basketball, we can always talk about basketball, and I really think they're going to be good in this series, and they should move on with home court advantage. But the life stuff and all the things that I've been fortunate enough to experience and have been passed down, and I try to continue to pass down, means a lot. And so having a conversation about it and having a podcast to constantly have conversations about it is incredibly important and something that I'll continue to support. Anything you do, I'll always support. John, you and I will be boys moving forward. So anytime you need me, I'm here for you guys.
Man,
I appreciate it. And we got to tee it up soon, man.
Let's make that happen. I'll hit you on Instagram. We'll get a time.
Definitely. All right, man. Salute episode 16. Homage Podcast. We out.
Yes, sir.
See you guys.
Knicks all the way. Knicks all the way.
Yes, sir.